Ostrom. I'm a licensed tile contractor in Northern California, and today I'm going to show you how we float a floor. So floating is a method we use in California. Traditionally we would do them on the floors. We don't float too many floors now. Down in Southern California they float a lot of floors. This floor was set up already for a float. So what they did is they actually recessed the subfloor in here. They recessed it 2 inches to allow for a mortar bed float. So as you can see, we got the transition into the hallway. We're 2 inches above here, 2 inches plus. And so that's going to allow us to fill this whole area with mortar and float it and screed it, get it real nice. And it's also going to allow us to do a curbless entry shower. So if you come in here, you can see we've already got our shower prepped out. And what we're going to end up doing, we got our linear drain in here. We have it set on the foam carrier that comes with it. We did this yesterday. It's already thin setted down. It's level. It's ready to go. So we're actually going to slope this floor up to the height of the rest of our floor right here. So this is going to be the threshold of the shower. So our floor is going to be level and it's going to come here and slope right down. So this is a really nice application to use a float. We're going to be able to get this floor flat and level and then get the correct slope going down to the drains. We have our chicken wire, our stucco netting. This is 1 inch 20 gauge stucco netting used for one coat floats. We have underneath this, we have aqua bar tar paper. So the tools that we're going to use today, I'm going to try to call them out as we go, as we work. But the basics are we need a wood float is really important. This is a wood float. You can use a magnesium float as well. I like the wood floats. They just feel really good. This is what I'll use to tamp my deck mud down. And you'll see me screeding and shaping the deck mud. Rubber mallet's really important. So we're going to set up screed strips with Redwood strips. Get those level and screed off of them. I use this to tamp on my levels so I don't damage my level. Margin trowel. Always have a margin trowel. This is my flat trowel of choice. This is a Marshalltown. This is a 12 by 5. These are really nice. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is get our level set. So we're trying to get our tile to the top of the hallway here. So we have our hardwood floor here. We want our tile to flush up right with the top so that we don't have to put any kind of reducers or anything right here. So what we need to do is set the level for the rest of the floor. So we want to allow the space for our thinset and tile. So I'm using these 2 pieces of wood together, and that's about what I want. I want about a 1/2 inch to allow for our 12 by 24 porcelain tile and our thinset. And I'm using a piece of tile just to set the level, and then we can kind of work off of that point. So I'm going to take some fat mud. What I have here is fat mud. I'm going to set a spot of mortar. So I'm going to use this piece of tile that I put in here. So I'm going to use this piece of tile as everything to work off the level that I want. So this is the thickness of my tile and my thinset. So I want this to be level with my floor. So actually they were pretty good on our level. So if I were to take this up, now I have the level that I want to work off of. Because this is the thickness of the tile and the thinset. So I'm going to float to the level of this dot right here. Okay, so what I'm using is Redwood float strips. These are 1/4 inch thick pieces of Redwood, 1.5 inches wide. You can either rip these out of Redwood 2x4, or you can find them in the lattice section a lot of times at our Home Depot. But this is what we use to float. We use these to set screeds in walls and floors. So I have my master height here. I'm going to take some pure cement. This is something my first setter taught me. He used to do this a lot when he would float. He'd just take pure cement, and that helps the fat mud set up. It'll stiffen it up so that it won't move. So that's a good trick to use if you want float strips to set up faster. You can use pure cement. So basically I'm going to set up my first float strip right here and do a line level here. I also got these, you'll notice these little, these are called bucket grippers. I had one of my viewers send these to me. They're really cool. I think you can find them, just Google bucket gripper, but they're really nice when you're carrying things. It doesn't wear on your hand right there, makes it really comfortable. So this fat mud's a little stiffer than we usually make it when we're doing built up screeds like this. It's actually stiffer than I would like it, but I'm going to be able to work with it. It just sat in the bucket for a little too long too. Okay, so now I got my float strip level this way and I have it leveled off my master point there. So I got my first float strip set. And I like to just kind of shape the mud into the float strip so it stays there. So Johnny, you can start mixing up that deck. So I got my first screed strip set. This mud's a little bit more to the consistency. We just went and had to remix it, but yeah, you can see the consistency here. This is a little bit more. And when you're setting your strips, you can use 2 of these trowels to kind of get your base built up to about the height you need it. One thing also, any place where you have like a floor register, use fat mud around that too, because deck mud would end up just crumbling and going in there. So, is this our next one, Steve?
Yep.
Okay. I'm going to take my next strip. And you might wonder why I'm not using one float strip right here. This is so as I work, I can pull the strips and pack them in without having to reach too far. Get the next strip leveled off of my next one. Go. Next strip is leveled. That's it?
Yep.
Went just a little too far. Just a little too far. Yeah, the looser the fat mud, the more you just really got to be careful. One little tamp and you're down too far. Level there. Next thing I'll do is take my 6.5. Just check everything here. Steve, you want to get a shot of the bubble here? You can see now I got a screed that's perfectly level. This will be a really nice floor to set off of. And any extra fat mud you have in your floor, you can just burn it into the wire. Yeah, so I got these. I'm gonna take some of my pure, and since this fat mud was a little looser, it's pretty loose, I'm gonna add a little bit of pure cement to this, just to firm these guys up. It doesn't hurt to do this. So back in the day, they used to use pure cement a lot when they would float these floors. So traditionally, in the houses that we see that were built in the earliest houses I've worked on, probably right around 1920 or so, when they do one of these bathroom floors, they would float it just like we're floating it now. Isn't that amazing? You know, 100 years later, using the same techniques, they'd float it the same way, but they would take pure cement. They didn't have thinset back then. So most of the floor tiles were mosaics. You'd see a lot of the little hexagon tiles. You'd see a lot of the basket weave porcelains. And so what they would do is they'd take their wet float, they'd set it the same day. Like I said, they would use their pieces of flat board to go into their fresh float. They'd start in the back and work this way. They'd just take a slurry of pure cement. They'd mix it up really loose like a slurry, then use a really thin notch, and then they would just comb that pure cement right into the float, set their mosaic on it, tamp it down, and that's how they got their floors built that way without thinset mortar. So just a little fun fact there. I'm gonna get one strip here at the threshold. In here. So I was just getting an idea of where I need to be. I know I need to be down probably another good 1/4 inch. So I'm just kind of feeling this one, making this strip level, and then I'll just check it again as I go. So I'm still high, so I don't want to just try to beat down one spot because it'll throw this whole strip out. So I'm just eyeballing it, and I'll keep this strip level as I work.
Getting closer.
A little more, you think?
Oh yeah, another.
Okay. And if anything, if I want to err, I want to err on it sloping down this way, not sloping back down that way. So I might even drop this a little bit more, you know, maybe a 16th or a 32nd, just to be safe, to make sure it's not running back that way. So that's about perfect. So just erring on the side of being a little bit low there. You can see the bubbles just on that side of the line. That's exactly where I want to be. All right.
Go.
Okay, so I can do this one of two ways. I can set up 2 screed lines going this way, or I can set a screed up line this way, or I can just screed off of here, which I don't know if I want to do, but I'm going to try it first. First thing I'm going to try is screeding off this. The only drawback to that is you got the corners, but what I can do, I can just lift that, so I'll screed off of here and just be very careful not to damage the curdy. And that's what I'll end up doing. So first thing I'm going to do is get some of my mud back behind my drain here. We couldn't put the drain all the way at the wall because there was a structural piece of lumber here. So this is as far back as we could get the drain. We're going to float these walls, so it'll actually end up being about perfect. So I'll just pack this mud down into behind the drain and in the little sides here. Get these done good. Make sure I get my mud packed down in there. I'll just take off the extra. Again, just being real careful with the fleece on the drain. I'm kind of eyeballing this. Obviously, you don't want any fall going that way. We want to try to err on the side of having more fall going towards the drain. That should be good there. Pack this down. Nice and clean there. I got enough over here. Oops, took too much out. There we go. So this is going to be able to sit up like this. That's actually what I'll do. I'll just pack it down like that. That's about right. That's about what I want. Okay. Okay, so when moving deck mud around and packing it, one of the biggest mistakes I see people make is that they will pack the mud down too hard, and especially before they start screeding it. So you'll see as I move the mud around, I'm just moving it around. And you can use whatever. You could use your foot, you could use anything to move this mud around, and I'm just getting it to about where it's gonna be. Damn it. I just knocked my float strip. So I kneeled on my float strip here. You can see what I did. So that's a goof. Now I need to redo this. Just gotta put my knee right there. Kind of dumb. So we're good. We're good there. Problem solved. I just got to be careful not to kick this float strip again. So I'm just moving my mud around. And getting it. See, I'm not even packing it down yet. I'm just moving it to where I want most of the mud. Okay, so now that I got my mud about where I want it to be, now it's time to start tamping. You can see I'm just tamping the mud. I'm not beating it. Again, if you start putting way too much pressure on it, it's going to be a lot harder to work with, and you'll actually cause it, as you beat it, you'll cause the mud to kind of want to break apart from itself. You just need to tamp it down. Just give it a nice little firm tamp. Okay, so that's good. I'm going to use my edge here. I'm just going to start taking off the material. These are L edges. You can find these at Contractors Direct, or you usually find them online. But just an aluminum set of straight edges. I think there's like 6 different lengths in a set. And these, if you don't have a set of these yet, get them if you're a tile setter. They're only about $100 and you don't use them all the time. So I'm even kind of riding on my float strip. I'm not really pushing down on my float strip. I'm just getting the main part of the mud off. Okay, so now I'm going to start pushing a little more firm. Back and forth screeding motion. Okay, so I'm looking pretty good here. I'm just gonna check my slope. Got good slope going downhill, and going this way, we're looking pretty good. A little high there. Yeah, there we go. That's looking good. So now what I'll do is I'll take an edge and go this way and just take out, I got a little hump in the middle. I'll take that out. Okay, so I got it about where I want to get it. So I'm going to take my wood float, and always keep your wood floats clean. Periodically you want to get the excess mud off your float. And now I'll start working it and kind of filling everything in. Any spots you see that need a little more mud, just get a little sprinkle, a little tamp, and work it in. You can see I'm using this trowel so that I can rest my body weight on it. So this is how you see guys that know how to float. You'll see their floats end up smooth like this because of this, what I'm doing with my float right here. Also, our mud mix here that we use is a little leaner than like your sand topping mix and stuff that you guys use back east. This is more like a 4.5 to 5 to 1 sand to cement mix, where topping mix is like a 3 to 1. So you'll notice I don't have big clumps where the deck mud wants to stick together. It's really smooth, easier to work with, and it dries just as hard, believe it or not. So I'll just fix up this little edge right here. Make sure I got a nice firm, smooth. So I'm going to check with my level one more time. So you can see where I'm at with my level. It is good. And I will just make sure all the way through it's nice and level. As I drag it. Okay, so I'm happy with that. So last step is, before you leave the area, clean up any of the corners like this. You know, I can do some of this tomorrow too. I want it to be as clean as I can. Any of the, I'll just vacuum that out tomorrow. And now, just take your flat trowel, keep pressure on the back edge, and this is how we get it looking like glass here. And that's that. So I got the first area done. Now I'm going to just start moving my way through the rest of the floor. So yeah, you can use your foot to move the mud around. Okay, so I've got the mud about where I want it. You'll also notice I put this, I put a little bit of foam at the perimeter just for expansion and contraction. Anytime you either self-level a floor or you float a floor, you don't want your tile system pinned in tight between walls, especially over large areas, because you want that floor and wall to be able to expand and contract a little bit. You want to have a little movement. If everything's pinned right to the walls and you get these two walls pinching in, this is an exterior wall, and say that wall starts moving, it'll put pressure on the whole system. You can get cracks in your float or your tile. So whenever you're doing a large area, either self-leveling or floating, make sure to put some expansion material in between your wall and your float. You can see my deck mud here is good. It's just wet enough to hold a fist ball. It's not too wet. If you start seeing water coming up, so if you were to start seeing water rise up to the surface, see the cream of the cement come up, it's too wet. So you want it like this. This is even a little wetter than I usually have it, but it's good. This mud is really nice, really easy to work with. I don't want to lose track of my float strip. That'll help me gauge my height. That is about right there. Maybe a little more over here. So I aim for like a 1/4 inch to a 1/2 inch high of where I want my finished surface. That leaves me enough room to tamp down and screed. But you don't want too much, and then because you'll just be redundant. You'll be putting too much material down and just have to move it around again. So just kind of eyeballing. Again, I'll do my first tamping. I need a little more right there. So you guys that are having problems with your deck mud separating after it dries, you know, I get a lot of people that have problems with it sloughing off. A lot of times what that is from packing it down and then adding more mud and packing that down. Where those two layers come together, it could slough off. So you want to get your mud up higher and then take material off. You don't want to be adding to it too much. Should be like a 4 work. Okay, cool. Tamp this down to just working my way back now to the end of my float strips. Hi, Johnny. Let's see. The end of my float strip is right here. So I'll work my way to that, then I'll pull my strips and turn them in. You know, most of what we use now to, if our floors are out of level, we use self-leveling underlayments. So the thing, obviously, self-leveling underlayments you can do thinner, not as much material, but it's a lot more expensive. It's pretty cumbersome. You have to make sure you mix it all at the same time. You need a spiked roller to do it right. You need a big bucket to do self-leveling right. And I have a video on doing a self-leveler. I'll put that link up so you can see it. But the material is very expensive too. I mean, you're looking at about $30 a bag on average for self-leveler, when deck mud is only about $5 a bag. So you're using a lot less technology. You know, floating a floor is old school, it's cheap. And if you have the thickness, again, so I wouldn't go, if it was a floating floor, like if it was over a subfloor, I wouldn't do anything less than 3/4 of an inch, and that's like minimum. I don't recommend anything under an inch, but if you have a high spot in a small area, 3/4 would probably be fine. But I'd say 1.25 inches, 1.5 inches is perfect mortar bed thickness for a floor. So if you have that, that's much easier just to float it than to try and put plywood down, you know, build dams everywhere so that your self-leveler doesn't pour into everything. You don't have to prime the surface first. It's pretty simple, easy way to do it, and I recommend you at least know how to do it, because there'll be circumstances that you'll need to know how to float. And you'll see here too that even if my edge rides off of my float strip, like it's not resting on a float strip, you can ride the mud with your edge, especially in smaller areas. Okay, so now it's time to pull my float strips, and they come right out. So then what I'll do is I'll just take more deck mud and fill these guys in. And I see a lot of guys when they float, they'll leave these out and then just fill them in with thinset. I just really don't like doing that. I don't know if it's an OCD thing or what, but it just doesn't look right. I'd rather have it all done. Okay, so after I get that in, I'm gonna go ahead and use my wood float just to get it where I want. And then tamp it down. Use my circular motion. You see when I'm using my wood float, I'm always going in circles. I'll do the same thing over here. Tamp it down. don't mess with stuff, you know, like this up here. Tomorrow we'll just come in with the vacuum and we'll vacuum that off. But yeah, I'm just putting firm pressure on the back edge of my trowel. Don't ever do it flat, you'll dig right into your mud. As long as the pressure is on the back of that trowel, it's gonna leave you a really nice, flat, smooth finish. I mean, floating a floor, this is great for doing mosaics on. If you're doing a mosaic, I love floating floors. So yeah, so the old school methods would be, you know, they would do this, then they would pour Portland, just pure cement slurry, real small V-notch, or they would probably even if you just coated it like this with pure cement, then take your mosaic sheet, plop it down, tamp it in with a beading block, and it'd be done. And that's how they did the old thick bed before they had thinset. Okay, so that section's done. We're just going to keep working our way back. Yeah, that is sloping down a little. That's good. Sloping that way, if anything. Nice and level there. Get him in here.
That's it. I'm calling my union rep.
Okay, so I want to show, we got the toilet flange sitting right here, which is going to prohibit me from doing a nice screed. I was able to screed here, but then I'm running into the toilet flange. So what I'm going to have to do is one of these numbers where I'll make like a little pie here. So a lot of what you can do with deck mud, which is really nice, is you can play with, you know, I think it's kind of why we call it floating. You know, you're just kind of working with what's there. So I could take a small edge, and since I have a level here and a level here, I can just work off of that. Create my little pie, and start off with little bits at a time. Just make sure you don't dig in too far. Just work with what you got, take as much of the material off as possible, and then go back and take more off. Hey Johnny, can you grab me a little level? I think I got a 16-incher. So if I want, I can drag my level across just to be safe and make sure I'm staying where I need to be. And it's a lot easier to move little bits of material at a time than trying to do this and take it all off at once. That's why I was just trying to stay from digging in. Make sure I'm good there. Take a little more off around here. Then you can use your wood float to take off the rest. If there's any high spots, your wood float will pick it up. Working. So now I have the same thing I got to deal with behind the toilet. Can you see that, Steve? So behind the toilet, I have no way of getting that. So I'll do the same thing. I'll just take my edge or my level, probably this guy right here, and just do the same thing. Actually, Steve, no, that's all right. So instead of setting up screed strips everywhere, you can float off of what's already there. Especially as you get a little bit better at it, a little more feel for it. All right, more mud, more mud, more mud. Yeah, these bucket grippers, the guy sent them to me, and these are a really cool little invention. You know, bucket grippers, awesome.
A solution for an inconvenience.
So as I do these areas, you know, it's a little bit wider area to work with, so working a little bit smaller sections. Again, I'm just getting my mud. So as you see where my new mud comes up to my old mud that's already been screeded, I'm leaving it up high. One of the tendencies when you're dumping your new mud up against what you've already screeded is to run into a little kind of soft spot where you didn't tamp it down all the way back. So I make sure that I get enough mud to overlap where I already screeded. You can see that's probably a good 3/8 inch. Now I'm going to tamp. Just tamp. Again, I'm not beating it. If I were to beat this, like I see people doing stuff like this, and it separates the mud. It kind of breaks it up. Don't need to do that. It's just kind of a firm tamp. That's all you need. It ain't gonna go anywhere, I promise. Because a lot of people, that's what they think. I'll get an email from them, and they'll say, you know, I tamped it down really hard. I can't understand why it's flaking off. I say, well, that's the problem. You use mud that's too rich, and you tamp down on it too hard. Good. So yeah, so make sure you tamp in real firm against where the new mud meets the old. You don't want to have a soft spot there. So I'm working in about, 18-inch sections. So you got a long edge, you're gonna pick up a lot of mud. And as you work, you can just put it back because you're gonna end up using it. And you can experiment with the leading edge. See, I'm using the leading edge of this straight edge here, and that's pretty aggressive. That's taken off a lot. If you want something a little more forgiving, just lay it flat like that. Problem with laying it flat, especially on a long edge like this, it's flexible, so you can dip down in the middle where it's not going to flex if it's laid up like this. You can even put the L edge down like this, and do it this way. Yeah, I'm just working. Working it all off. So, And it's just a thing of beauty to set level on a floor and have it. I mean, it's right there. It's right where we need to be. Very nice. Perfect. That's kind of a shot I wanted to get.
Looks pretty.
It does, huh? That.
Zooming in.
That mud's still a little juicy. And there we go. We got a nice flat floor. It's gonna work perfect for what we need to do. Again, I hope you like this video. Click like and subscribe. Watch the next one coming up. Last but not least, I love you guys. I love being your tile coach. We'll see you on next video.